Greetings from the battlefield. This is Army of One, and you've tuned into the second ever Battle Report, news and community discussion for the MechWarrior Online Open Beta. Now, being as I want this to be both news and community discussion, I'll go ahead and wade into the official MechWarrior forums to bring you discussion relevant to the current state of the game. Now, I know what you're saying, and I do know that the reputation for the official MechWarrior forums looks something like this, or topics like this, or mountains of polls that look something like this. And I know. The general level of discourse isn't what one might call intellectual, but that doesn't mean that there aren't any well thought out and creatively expressed ideas on the forums. I'll go ahead and bring interesting topics and discussions relevant to the news to hopefully create some meaningful discussion and a little bit of community interaction. Now that's out of the way, here's the news for November 16th, 2012. This week, Army of One announces the War Room. Russ Bullock accidentally announces third person's perspective, the community reacts, and Garth Earlham does some damage control. Future weapon balance plans were announced from the devs, and a community moderator was accused of C-Bell farming. Now, let me explain exactly what the War Room is. When I started the Battle Report last week, that's all it was, the Battle Report. Only one show for the news, discussion, builds, strategies, for everything that I wanted to bring to the MechWarrior community. So, after some thought, I realized that there really needed to be multiple shows to organize the content in any meaningful way. So, that's why I am creating the War Room. The War Room will be that collection of shows. The Battle Report will still be the news and community discussion, but there will also be separate subsections of the War Room. Tactical Warfare will discuss strategy for different maps, as well as strategy for certain specific team compositions. Now, different team compositions will really come into play during the matchmaking phase 2, where class limits will be released for the 8-man team. The Tech Lab will spotlight various mech builds, but also present data from mechanics testing. Right now, this is an open beta, and we are beta testers, so we really need to make sure that the game is working as intended. And finally, Boot Camp will be for those who want to learn tips, tricks, basic piloting skills, as well as general tactics for the different roles. Notice I didn't say different classes, as many veterans may know. There's more than one role for any given class. Now enough about me, let's move on to the real news for this week. On Wednesday, Russ Bullock, the president of Piranha Games, went on to the No Guts, No Galaxy podcast. He was having a discussion about the new player experience, and the topic of the third-person perspective came up. Here's what he had to say about it.
I was actually pretty against it for a really long time, and I was really vocal against it internally, and I'm starting to realize that I was a mistake. I mean, I shouldn't have been, but the first version of MechWarrior up to open beta was really for the core fan. But the thing that's the most complex to brand new people is the torso aspect, believe it or not. So it's just that little aspect of torso, which is the number one thing for new users. The only way to truly show somebody what's happening in the game is to add a third-person camera angle. We've used that analogy before, and you're right, and it does help a little bit, but you can tell people all day long that they're driving a tank, but they can't see it.
I agree.
They can't see it.
And everyone.
That was from the No Guts, No Galaxy podcast, between about 23 minutes and 40 minutes. I highly recommend that you go listen to it for yourself. Now, shortly afterwards, a poll was quickly started on the MechWarrior official forums. Now, this poll showed that the entire community was resounding that they were very much against the idea of a third-person perspective. When that poll started skyrocketing, Miss, one of the community moderators, went ahead and started a feedback thread. This wasn't very much different from the poll. Most everyone, I didn't even see a single, yes, I would like a third person in my competitive mech sim, please. There might be some out there. There are a couple yeses on the poll, but I don't want to dig through that much MechWarrior forum if you catch my drift. Now, I'll go ahead and give you my opinion on the third-person perspective, and I will actually go and give my opinion on what I think Russ Bullock thinks about the third-person perspective. Now, what I think is, I'm completely against it. No. What you're trying to do is, your only excuse, Mr. Bullock, was new players don't know what to do. Well, that's because you haven't added a tutorial to the game. You've thrown them into trial mechs and then say have fun. And frankly, that's just lazy. Putting in just a new camera angle won't really fix the problem as much as a tutorial would, and you'd be segregating the player base because you've announced that, well, if you don't want to play third person, then you don't have to play third person. MechWarrior right now is not that big. If you put in, community segregation, as you have announced in this podcast, it won't end well. Now, that's not even touching the obvious implication. I'm sure everyone has played, or at least heard of, the MechWarrior 4 jump jetting snipers, where you would just look over a hill, see that your opponents are on the other side of the hill, at the bottom, they can't see you, you jump jet, you snipe them with the Gauss, and that's very much a game-breaking situation. Now, what I think about what Russ Bullock thinks, I actually think it sounded like to me, I'll put it this way, it sounded like to me he was trying to convince himself during that podcast that what he was saying was right. He kept asking, well, it's like whenever you're playing a first-person shooter and you look in the direction and you think you're going that way, right? Right? And more than once, he said, believe it or not, the torso is the biggest problem for new players, believe it or not. Mr. Bullock, I'm going to call you right now. I don't think you believe that. Now, this might have been thrown around the office. This might be being worked on. But I don't think that you believe that it's the best way to go forward either. Now, after this slip-up by Mr. Bullock, Garth Earlham posted this message on the forum, and it basically says, Russ let slip in an interview that they were looking into third person. A lot of people have actually been requesting this, and that if it is implemented into the game, it will be completely optional, and that once Brian Ekman returns to the office, apparently he's traveling right now, he'll be writing up an in-depth look into what exactly is going on in the offices right now. Well, that's mostly it. We can't really say more on PGI's intent until Brian gets back. So, let's go ahead and move on. Russ also posted this week, intentionally, upcoming and future planned updates for the balance of the game. Notable entries are the increases in AC projectile speeds, especially for the higher caliber speeds. Right now we're looking at the AC-20 speed, and I've also put in some comparisons to the AC-10, AC-5, and AC-2 as well, just to see how much slower the AC-20 is, say, compared to the AC-2. Other notable entries, Gauss rifle health in tabletop. Yes, I know, people always scream, why are you always yelling about tabletop? Well, tabletop is the reference point that they're using, so why not use it? So the Gauss rifle will have lowered health if there is a critical shot, then your Gauss rifle will be much more fragile than it is currently. They'll be buffing the damage to LRM just a little bit, 1.8. Machine gun damage will get buffed. Flamer heat generation on your target will get buffed, and also various hit effects for the PPCs, the electromagnetic distortions that you see, and actually even AC-20 impulse changes, so whenever you get hit by an AC-20, it will rock you hard. Now, there's actually a very good post on the forums from MCXL discussing his view on the state of the weapon balance and how heat generation is pretty much screwed right now. I highly recommend reading it. It is very long, divided into multiple chapters, and he's not quite finished it. He has been updating this for a couple weeks now, and he will continue to update it. And I'm sure when he finishes it, well, if you have any disagreements with it, please be vocal. Explain why you disagree with his view and why. I can't stress that enough. People seem, on the forums especially, just to say, no, I don't like it, this is stupid, I want my refund. Instead, please be logical, and please give reasoning as to why you don't like it. Anyway, enough on that. Let's go ahead and move to our last story for the week. About a week ago, on the C-Reddit, Merc Company Reddit, for Reddit, there was a post as a public service announcement telling people to watch out for farmers, and specifically a community moderator and the ELH head, an in-lore Merc company, as to watch out for farmers. And there was one community moderator, Ram, that was specifically called out and accused of C-Bell farming. Well, it turns out that now we have a video claiming that Ram has been C-Bell farming, and I'll go ahead and show it to you right here.
Catapult coming. Foxtrot. I'm gonna engage.
Alright, what kind of cat?
3 meds at M15. No meds.
Give me a target.
Foxtrot. But it's should be dead soon.
Bring in the rain.
Nice.
Did you get all that?
Now, here's what I saw in that video. I saw Ram standing at his base doing absolutely nothing. Now, he wasn't powered down, he was moving and you could target him, but he was clearly unrepaired and he was clearly doing nothing. So, I'm not sure. I mean, he was moving, so he wasn't AFK. So he's either the worst team player ever in my book, or the worst farmer ever in my book. You can draw your own conclusions, but either way, I don't believe that this activity, this behavior should be tolerated, especially from community moderators. Now, this allegation in that video just happened to coincide quite nicely with a post I had just written on the forums describing in detail the current state of the economy, why it actually encourages C-Bell farmers and AFKers, and what exactly I would do to try to alleviate the problem. Now, please keep in mind, I'm trying to paint just a general picture. A lot of people down in the comments seem to have gotten lost in the details, but I want to create an economy that specifically doesn't reward people for that act in their own personal interest alone, different from the team's best interest. Right now, everyone gets 70,000 for dropping. Everyone, winners or losers alike. And that highly encourages people to not spend money on their mechs and not contribute to the team just because they get 70,000 for dropping. So the economy that I want to create is an economy in which there are no AFKers, no unrepaired mechs, that repairing your mech is in your best interest because your best interest is within the team's best interest. That's all I want to do. Now, I do go into some numbers just to see, well, as a comparison to the current economy, how would this sort of look? But those are details. We can disagree on the details. But what I want to make a discussion is, well, do you disagree with the vision? Do you disagree that AFKers, farmers, and unrepaired mechs directly and I would say greatly detract from the entire aspect, the entire point of MechWarrior Online? Now go ahead, give it a read. It is long. I will edit it and cut it down into bite-sized chunks, so it's a little bit more organized and a little bit easier to read. But everything's there right now. I don't think that I'll be making any major changes to the vision. So, I believe that's it for the week of November 16th, 2012, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Now, as I was saying, you don't have to play in third person, okay?